Good evening, everyone. Thank you for stopping in or joining us. I hope you stay for the hour. I'm Nancy Sarah, Superintendent. With us tonight, we have Todd Verdi, Principal at Slade Middle, Damon Pierce, Principal at New Britain High School, Joanna Robles, Principal at Pulaski Middle, Donna Swaby, who is our Special Education Coordinator for grades 6 through 12, Mike Foran, our Assistant Super, Myra Rodriguez in our Partnership Office, Mark Spalding, Director of Special Ed, and Jackie Maddie, Everything COVID. She is our Nursing Supervisor for the district. So thank you all for being here with us tonight. A couple of weeks ago, we had talked, we didn't meet last week, and we talked about some of this. We wanted to really speak to secondary education tonight, the successes and some of the challenges that we've been experiencing as we reopened over the last 14 days. But before we do that, I just want to update you on a couple of pieces of information around COVID. Myra, do you want to translate?
Buenas tardes, gracias por estar con nosotros esta noche. Queremos darles unas actualizaciones sobre COVID. En referente a la asistencia de los estudiantes, el cambio que se ha hecho es que si hay estudiantes que se han marcado ausentes, que los estudiantes se van a marcar presentes mientras estén en cuarentena, si ellos pueden demostrar evidencia que ellos se han ingresado a sus cursos mientras están remotamente conectados, y que también demuestren que están completando sus asignaturas y sus trabajos por un mínimo de 3 horas, 20 minutos o mínimo de 3 horas, 20 minutos o la mitad del día escolar. Por favor, nosotros le pedimos a los padres que por favor, cuando los estudiantes estén fuera en cuarentena, que asistan las 2 horas después de la escuela para la tutoría para poder recibir asistencia adicional.
Thank you, Myra. And just a couple of things. I'm going to start with Jackie Maddie, who's got an update on the voluntary student screening. And I'm going to hand it over to Jackie.
Good evening, everyone. We are working with Quest Labs and Transformational Healthcare to set up our voluntary student screening. We had hoped that it would start next week, but things are just not quite in place yet. So we'll be starting the week of October 4th. We will be sending out electronically and having up on our website permission forms. If parents would like to have their students screened, then they would sign the permission form. The screeners will come directly to the school one time every week.
Thank you, Jackie. Myra, did you want to translate?
En este momento estamos trabajando con Quest Labs para poder proveer los exámenes para los estudiantes. Nosotros vamos a empezar la semana de octubre 4. Los formularios para poder firmar la autorización de padres se va a enviar pronto por las escuelas, y cuando ustedes reciban estos formularios, por favor, regresarlos a las escuelas.
Thanks, Myra. Matt, if you could just put up the one slide that we wanted to review tonight. This is regarding student attendance during the quarantine, and there's a change here. Thank you for giving us your feedback. And so the change is all students will be marked present while they're on quarantine if they show evidence that they've logged on to their learning platform, they all have their computers, and they exhibit effort in completing their assigned work for a minimum of 3 hours, 20 minutes, or half a school day. And the other piece, we really encourage you that if your child is out on quarantine, that they attend the 2-hour after-school tutoring program that's set up by each of the schools. I'm going to answer all the questions I see coming in a second, but I'm going to have Myra translate this piece for me first.
I already did that, Nancy. That's what I first read when we first started.
Thank you. So we listened, and again, it's we're still living in COVID, and we don't want our students to miss out. And so we listened, and this is the result. So I have Bridget's asking, if we have a question about our child being quarantined and others in the class not being quarantined, who do we talk to? Jackie?
So you should be speaking to your school nurse, and they can explain to you. Those that are quarantined are people who are identified as close contacts. Close contacts being more than 6 feet or closer than 6 feet, I'm sorry, from 15 or more minutes in general. But the school nurse can give you more details about that.
Myra?
La pregunta que se hizo es que si algún padre tiene algún tipo de pregunta sobre el estudiante de ellos cuando está en cuarentena y otros que han estado en la clase también, ¿con quién se debe de comunicar? La respuesta es con la enfermera de su escuela. Ellos le pueden proveer esa información. Personas que se consideran en contacto cercano son estudiantes que han estado más de 6 pies cerca y también por más de 15 minutos.
Thank you. And I have Melanie Alvarez is asking, what's the difference between screening and testing, Jackie?
Okay, so the definition is different, but the procedure is the same. Testing is when someone has COVID symptoms or someone has been identified as a close contact with someone who has tested positive for COVID. Screening is done routinely not because someone's sick or not because they've come in contact with COVID, but they want to know if they have COVID.
Ok, la pregunta fue cuál es la diferencia entre ser revisado y ser examinado, y la respuesta es que cuando un estudiante es revisado es cuando es algo que se hace para evitar que, para demostrar que el estudiante está bien y pueden continuar en la escuela. De tener un examen hecho es cuando una persona o un estudiante tiene síntomas de COVID y se le tiene que hacer un examen para ver si el estudiante o la persona está contagiado.
Thank you. And another COVID question. I thought social distancing was 4 feet now. Jackie, do you want to respond?
Sure. So social distancing is for students who are wearing masks, who are seated in the classroom, is 3 feet. That is new guidance from the Center for Disease Control. But in all other cases, it is 6 feet. So if a student or students are moving around in the classroom, if students are unmasked, for example, if they were at a mask break and they were gathered together, or if they're in other parts of the building, walking in the hallways or in the cafeteria or gym. The Center for Disease Control said that the 3 feet distance only applies to seated students in the classroom.
La pregunta fue, o el comentario fue que ellos pensaban que el distanciamiento social era de 4 pies. La respuesta para eso es que el distanciamiento entre los estudiantes cuando están sentados con la mascarilla puesta es de 3 pies y esto es aplicable solamente cuando los estudiantes están dentro de las aulas. Sin embargo, si los estudiantes están tomando sus descansos de la mascarilla, si están caminando el edificio o la aula, es cuando se requieren los 6 pies por cada estudiante.
Thanks. And Myra, while you're translating, can you just also, Jackie, the screening happens weekly, correct?
One time a week.
Right.
Schedule.
Para las familias que opten por recibir, porque sus hijos sean revisados semanalmente, tienen que, obviamente, antes de tiempo, poner esto en pie con su escuela porque no pueden nomás entrar a la escuela y eso es semanalmente.
Thank you. And then I just have 2 questions around the student attendance slide that we spoke to. And the first one is, Mr. Green, how are you? What constitutes effort? And that's an individual thing, right? The teacher and the building admin know the student. We don't want to say it has to be this or this or this. We are looking for the student's effort toward completing their assignments. And again, every student is different, and their effort is different as well.
La pregunta fue que qué es lo que define el esfuerzo de un estudiante, y la respuesta es que el estudiante debe de tratar de terminar todas sus asignaturas lo más que puedan, y también asistir a sus cursos. Cada estudiante es diferente, pero mientras que ellos hagan el esfuerzo de poder terminar sus estudios, se les proveerá, se les contará como horario para las clases.
The next one, I'm sorry, I'm just going to finish up these questions, then we'll shift to secondary education. But the other one was, it's just gone, can the 2 hours, hi Kari, nice, glad that you're here. Can the 2 hours of tutoring count towards the half day? The answer is yes, it can. Some of our students need more guidance, and of course, we want to encourage them to be on that tutoring session, so absolutely.
La pregunta es que si las 2 horas adicionales de tutoría pueden contar para el mediodía del estudiante, y la respuesta es sí, que esas 2 horas que ellos hagan después de la clase también se contará como parte de su día escolar.
I'm sorry I missed it. Is the testing and screening voluntary? Yes, Marcena, it is voluntary.
So we are not testing students who are ill. We're only testing students or screening students whose parents have signed a permission slip for the weekly screening.
Los exámenes que se le van a hacer a los estudiantes semanalmente van a ser hechos para los estudiantes que no estén demostrando síntomas de COVID. No se les estará haciendo para los estudiantes que sí estén demostrando. Eso ya se les haría un examen.
The next question is, does the quarantine, Marcena, this is you, does the quarantine attendance also apply to a positive students that are home? The number one thing is that your child is healthy. And if they've tested positive for COVID, they are really out sick, right? Jackie, I'm going to have you take this one, but we care mostly that the kids are healthy.
Right. Sick students are sick students, and they're not, when they are home because they are positive, they are not expected to be participating.
Okay. And Myra, do you want, they're moving fast. There's a lot of questions, so they keep jumping on you. Do you want to take Marilyn Garcia's?
The question is, why don't they do remote classes from home?
Okay. Per the governor's executive order. Well, and I want to say it's based on these past 18 months of looking at the successes and the challenges for all of our families and our students. Our students are better to be in school, and the state has worked very hard to weigh. We know, right? We understand that there's still fear with the virus, but we also need to ensure that their social emotional well-being and being present with peers after a very long time at home is what's best for kids. So because of that, we do not have remote learning.
Marilyn García, la respuesta para su pregunta es que nosotros no podemos tener clases remotamente porque es parte de la orden ejecutiva del gobernador, y también hemos visto que durante los últimos 18 meses, cuando los estudiantes estuvieron fuera, tuvo un impacto a cada estudiante emocionalmente. Así que nosotros hemos visto que es más beneficioso que los estudiantes estén en persona dentro de las escuelas para poder recibir la mejor atención que puedan.
And Bridget, no worries, I get it. I mean, I think for us, we've been in it 18 months now, so it kind of feels almost second nature. I don't know, but don't apologize. I don't understand it all. I'm just trying to get informed how it all works with screening and quarantines. Hopefully we took care of that, Bridget, but feel free to put more questions in if you have them. Not a problem. Jeremy Ramirez is saying, do you need to be tested to prove you have it if you feel or are sick? Do you need to be tested, Jackie?
Oh, Am I going to force you to be tested? No. If you have COVID-like symptoms, it is strongly recommended that you do get tested. There are other conditions that can have the same symptoms as COVID. It helps your physician and you know how to take care of yourself.
La respuesta es que si alguien necesita que tomar el examen de COVID, si tienen algún tipo de síntoma o no se sienten bien, la respuesta es que nosotros no vamos a requerir que se haga el examen, sin embargo, ustedes conocen su salud y es muy importante de que si ustedes tienen esos síntomas o piensan que a lo mejor pueden tener el virus, que por favor se examinen.
Thanks. And we have a question from one of our staff members, Leslie Libby, who's also a parent in our district. But Leslie's asking if I'm considered a close contact, and remember, she's a covered employee, and I'm feeling fine, do I still go to work? Jackie?
Yes. As an essential staff member, yes. If you are feeling well, you still come to work. There are some mitigation requirements, which I'm happy to go over with you. You can get in touch with me.
La pregunta es que si la persona se considera en contacto cercano a alguien que estuvo contagiado con el virus, pero se sienten bien, si todavía tienen que ir al trabajo. Esta persona es una persona que trabaja con nosotros en el distrito y es alguien que ha recibido la vacuna. Y la respuesta es sí, mientras que la persona se siente bien y no tenga ningún síntoma, pueden asistir al trabajo regularmente.
Thank you. And Marilyn Garcia has another comment or question. Myra, do you see it in the chat?
It's a comment. She says, so you want them to keep getting sick?
No, we don't. We really don't want them to continue to get sick. If a parent tests positive, what's the procedure for the child?
So if a parent tests positive and the parent cannot separate from the child, then the child is first and foremost, the child's a close contact when they're with the parent, and they will go out on quarantine. The number of days that they're on quarantine may be longer if they are not able to separate from the parent. This one's a long explanation.
Go ahead, Myra. Thanks for pausing.
La pregunta fue, déjenme ver, si un padre toma el examen y sale positivo, ¿cuál es el procedimiento para el hijo? Y la respuesta es que padres que han tenido un examen positivo y que no pueden mantener distanciamiento de sus propios hijos, los hijos tienen que mantenerse en cuarentena. Los números de días pueden ser un poco más de lo normal que se les esté pidiendo a los estudiantes.
If a parent is sick with COVID, they are considered to be contagious for 10 days after they develop symptoms or after they test positive. The number of days the child needs to quarantine depends on the last day during that contagious time that the child was with the parent.
Okay. Si un padre está enfermo, ellos se consideran contagiosos y los estudiantes tienen que mantenerse fuera por un promedio de 10 días para poder, dependiendo del último día cuando la persona se dio cuenta que que salió positivo de COVID.
Thank you. All set, Jack?
Yeah.
Okay. Bianca, your question is, are bus drivers required to wear masks? The answer is yes, they are. Because I've seen many little buses wearing no masks with kids. That's not acceptable, and we will contact the bus company on that.
La pregunta es que si las personas que están manejando los autobuses están requeridos de utilizar una mascarilla. La respuesta es sí. Nosotros nos vamos a comunicar con el Departamento de Transportación para dejarles saber que es algo que es requerido por el distrito por precauciones.
Thank you, Myra. All right, so I'm seeing some comments, and I do want to, and we can monitor the questions, but I really want to take some time now to introduce Todd and Joanna and Donna Swaby, who is our pupil service coordinator for grades 6 through 12. If you both want to just start pinging it, just talk about the successes on the first 14 days, some of the challenges we're facing. We love successes, but we're realistic. There's challenges too. So go ahead.
You got it, Nancy. Thanks for the opportunity. Right off the bat, we knew coming in this year was going to be different than any other year that we had faced. We knew that students would be coming in. This was a mental health crisis, not only for students, but for adults and families. So as we learned from our first week of having students and teachers on site, we had to restructure a little bit to better meet the needs of the kids and make sure we had safety within the building. In doing so,
I'm going to say give Myra a chance.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I know. It's hard. Thank you, Myra.
Este es el señor Todd Verdi, que él es el director de la escuela de Pulaski. Él comentó que este año ha sido un año muy diferente a cualquier otro año que hemos tenido. Hemos tenido que hacer un poco de reconstrucción y reestructura para poder asegurar que los estudiantes se mantengan que se mantengan bien, y también tratar de acoplarnos con el nuevo año y trabajar con los estudiantes lo más que podemos.
This is difficult. I've never done this before, but
I know.
I'll get good at it. So in restructuring our schedule to better meet the needs of the students and the staff, and really focusing on the needs of the students and coming back, we restructured the school so that students would be able to really begin to focus on the reteaching of the skills that have been missing for the past 18 months. So as we reacclimate the students to schedules, to boundaries, to decision-making within the school, how to get along with each other, how to enter a school building. These are all new skills that they've got to relearn. And for staff over the past 18 months, we haven't had to have these issues because we didn't have the number of students in the classroom. So not only are the students learning again, but staff is learning as well. We've gotten to the point where we are in the building and we're able to students are able to access all our learning. Teachers are really hitting a good stride in terms of relationship building with our students. It's with the understanding of our restorative practices that the students and the teachers now are able to better communicate.
Thanks, Todd. Myra?
Quiero corregir algo. Yo dije que Todd Verdi era el director de Pulaski, perdón, es de Slade. Se me trancó un poco. Él, como estaba comentando, que el enfoque ahorita es de retención de las habilidades de los estudiantes. Nosotros, ellos han trabajado con los schedules y también con las materias para poder ayudar a los estudiantes durante estos tiempos dificultosos. Las relaciones, los estudiantes y los miembros del personal de la escuela han tenido que reevaluar y también cambiar un poco la forma de hacer cosas como se hacían anteriormente. Ellos y los maestros están haciendo lo más que puedan para poder crear esas relaciones con los estudiantes, para proveer un ambiente mejor y más saludable para los estudiantes.
So as in really trying to put more supports in place for the students, we reached out to the community. We hired an additional 8 lunch and monitor aides from the community that now work with us. They help us move the children from one place to the next, help us with their restrooms, because I'll be honest, the restrooms were an issue. You know, many of you have heard of the TikTok challenges and the soap dispensers and things like that. This is part of us reteaching the children how to use the school appropriately, how to interact appropriately within the building. So really, we reached out to the community to bring more community members in to help us with within our building. It's a very important aspect for us that the students take pride in their building, that students take pride in their community. And you may have heard of a lot about soap being in the restrooms or soap not being in the restrooms. Our thing is that we try to replace that as fast as we can when we do come across those issues.
Parte de lo que se ha hecho como estructura en la escuela de Slade es que se han puesto más soportes para los estudiantes. También se han contratado más personas para monitorear y trabajar dentro de en las cafeterías cuando tienen el almuerzo los estudiantes, o también para ayudar con la supervisión de los baños. Como ustedes se han dado cuenta, hay algo que está impactando muchos distritos, que es el reto de TikTok, y esto ha ocasionado muchos problemas dentro de varias escuelas. También trayendo más personal de la comunidad de afuera para nuestros edificios, para traer esa estructura y para que los estudiantes también se sientan orgullosos de su escuela.
Thank you, Todd. I'm gonna respect our time. If we have to go over, that's okay too. But I do see some questions. So, Mr. Verdi, in the interest of time, read through the questions, and some are comments. And I see one in particular from Admira that maybe you want to reach out to and have them come into the school. But I'm going to turn it over to Joanna now to the question about the high school. We'll be starting that in about 10 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. I am Joanna Robles, the principal of Pulaski Middle School. Before I start, I saw a lot of hellos at the beginning, so I just want to yell hello back. I just couldn't type comments, but glad to hear from you guys. Like I said, I'm Joanna. I'm the principal of Pulaski Middle School. So I definitely want to talk about a lot of successes, because even though we had a difficult year, and we still are having a difficult year with a lot of emotional support for our students and our staff, we also have some successes. So I definitely want to highlight those and go then into our challenges, because although we have challenges, I think that our successes are really outweighing our challenges, and we are making the best of our challenges and working with that. But I definitely want to start with our attendance. Our attendance has been a success. Our students are coming to school. The hallways are full of students. They talk about coming back, that building relationship in the classrooms with the teachers and the staff. As Mr. Verdi said, we put in a schedule in place this school year to really support our students so emotionally as well as academically. And so on the emotional part, we started our morning meetings last year, and that was a success. We continue morning meetings this year with our students in homeroom. And morning meetings is about really just building community and talking about what the kids want to talk about in a structured manner. And kids all support each other through, what they want to talk about. Say, hey, I'm going through that too. Let's talk about it, how we can really talk about different issues and how we can resolve different issues. That's been going on. Some of the things that also, we have additional homeroom helpers in our homerooms and in the afternoon. So the homeroom helpers help adjust our students in the morning. So one person is in the hallways, the other person is in the classroom. So there's always supervision of our students. But again, that goes hand in hand with supporting and building relationship with kids, because we try to put people in the classroom that kids usually don't see on a day-to-day basis, so they get to know that there's other people in the building that to support them. For example, we have our guidance counselors that are part of those community building. We also have our social workers, our psychologists. They're all part of that to help support students. Oh, I'm sorry, I am going too fast and we need to translate. Or do you want me to translate after, Nancy? I can't hear Nancy.
If you don't mind translating, that would be great. Okay. I'm sorry. I was going to stop you, but you were on such a roll.
Well, and again, and so part of that morning meetings is also, we build in the afternoon a community building period for our students, which is before they leave home. And we did that just to get them settled before dismissal. And it's been working out great, where they get dismissed by their homeroom teachers and the homework helper, and they're walked to their buses. And so I think that the support of the staff really being on the same page has assisted a lot. And I appreciate my staff. I appreciate my kids for doing, for the most part, the right thing. My kids also get transition from classroom to classroom. And so for their academic classes, they're right next door to their teachers, so to their academic teachers, science, social studies, ELA, and whatever when I miss math. But for their academic arts and their STEAM, they're quite a distance away. So our teachers and our support staff and our teacher assistant, which is another positive of this year that we added to our staff, they transition kids to the classroom. So that has also been something positive in our school. I hear a lot of the additional staff members. So we have additional guidance counselor that has been a positive. As well as social worker. We just are starting with another social worker at our school. That's also a positive thing. Challenges, social media. Social media has been our biggest challenge. And with social media comes the phones. So I would appreciate the support of the parents. We do have students, a green zone and a red zone. So the red zone, obviously they can't use the phone and they use it during the green zone. The green zone really is during their lunch period as well as their mass break for them to use the phones. But social media is really what has hindered has been a challenge because kids come back with whatever happened in the summer to what in school. And so we're getting information of this is what she did to me in the summer. This is what he did to me in the summer. And so try to really attend to that situation before it becomes a situation, a negative situation. That's been our biggest hurdle. But I think we're getting there right now. And having assemblies with the kids often has also helped just to reiterate expectations. And so part of those morning meetings and part of those community building as well is also to reiterate expectations for our kids. Buenos días, yo soy la señora Robles, yo soy la directora de Pulaski Middle School, la orgullosa directora de Pulaski Middle School. Quiero decirle buenos días o buenas noches a todos que me dijeron hola, que no pude escribir más temprano, pero gracias por decirme hello, lo mismo a ustedes. Quiero hablar de algunas de los sucesos que hemos tenido en la escuela de Pulaski. Y hemos tenido más positivo en la escuela, yo diría, que negativo en la escuela. Lo positivo, obviamente, es los niños están atendiendo a la escuela. Ellos están contentos de venir a la escuela. Con ese contento también vienen algunas dificultades porque ellos han tenido tiempo donde no han tenido socialización con estudiantes o cuando tengan esa socialización también puede ser un problema. Otro beneficio de la escuela de nosotros también es que todos nuestros maestros, ellos trabajan con estudiantes para tener una relación con ellos, para hablar con ellos. So, yo tengo algo que se llama morning meeting, que son las reuniones de la madrugada, para que los estudiantes puedan hablar con los maestros en su salón hogares, para tener una comunicación y también tener una relación. Esas reuniones también los tenemos al final del día y eso es para terminar el día para que los maestros y los estudiantes también puedan hablar sobre lo que está sucediendo en la escuela para evitar muchas cosas. Hemos tenido la adición de nuestros guidance counselors, que son los consejeros. También hemos tenido a trabajadores sociales que nos están ayudando con todas las cosas que los niños han tenido. Sí, ha habido algunas situaciones con falta de respeto, pero eso también tiene que ver con algunos estudiantes no han venido a la escuela por los últimos 18 meses. Por lo tanto, tenemos también que volver a enseñar a nuestros niños cómo es el aprendizaje, cómo es la escuela. Hemos tenido esa transición. Pero yo creo que poquito a poquito estamos haciendo mejor cada día. Algunas de nuestros challenges, y perdón que no lo sé decir en español, ha sido redes sociales. Obviamente los muchachos se comunican con las redes sociales y los teléfonos. So, si ustedes pueden hablar con los niños sobre el uso de teléfonos y los usos positivos de teléfono. One other challenge, I must say, is Chromebooks. I need students to bring Chromebooks every day.
Joanna,
Joanna,
you
you
muted.
muted yourself. You muted. It's the hands.
Did you hear my Chromebook?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just started to hear that.
One of the other challenges that I forgot to mention are the Chromebooks. Students need to bring in Chromebooks on a daily basis. We use the Chromebooks in addition just to enhance the teacher's instructions in the classroom. And it is an integral part of our daily lessons. We have to make sure they bring their Chromebooks. Los estudiantes tienen que, otro de las situaciones que hemos encontrado es que los estudiantes tienen que traer sus computadoras a la escuela todos los días. Eso es parte de eso es parte de los días diarios. Eso es muy importante. Pero si tienen cualquier pregunta o quieren llamarme, por favor, llámame a la escuela, me mandan un email que yo le puedo contestar cualquier pregunta. If you guys have any further questions, please feel free to give me a call, email me, that I will be more than happy and glad just to communicate with you and answer any of your questions.
Thank you, Joanna. Thank you, Todd. Matt, if you can put their contact information. Damon, I hope you were reading the questions ahead of time. And just remember, Myra has to translate. So, tackle the questions in part of your conversation. We're going to turn it over now to the high school. Again, if we need next week, we can do next week as well. So I don't want you to feel like we have to rush through this. And Mr. Verdi will be looking at your questions to answer some of them after as well. Okay, you're up, Damon.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Damon Pierce, principal of New Britain High School. The good news, our kids are back, right? And we have lots and lots of kids in the building, and the vast majority of them are engaged at school, engaged in classes, engaged in activities. Indeed, while I was sitting here, I'm being tempted because the girls' volleyball team was playing right next door in the gym, and I could keep hearing the cheers and the acclamation from the crowd. So that is fantastic to hear. Mara?
Buenas tardes. Les quiero presentar al señor Damon Pierce, que es el director de la escuela High School de New Britain. Y él quiere empezar con las buenas noticias. Él mencionó que los estudiantes han regresado y están involucrándose en varias clases y también varias actividades después de la escuela. En este momento está escuchando un juego de voleibol y como él mencionó, él está muy contento de ver que las actividades han continuado y que los estudiantes estén participando.
Thank you. I also know that we have a large majority of kids engaging because I spend time in classrooms as well. And so I recall I was making a video announcement about a week ago, and that's run by a class of students every morning here at the high school. And what a great conversation we had with them while we were waiting for all the technology to come up. I've been in social studies classrooms, many of those visiting them pursuant to a project they're doing, where students asked me about my role as principal. Again, great conversations, really thoughtful questions. And I visit other classrooms as well. It's exciting to be able to engage back with students and have them engage with me.
El señor Pierce mencionó que los estudiantes están teniendo conversaciones entre ellos mismos y han tenido la oportunidad también de hacer preguntas y también comunicarse con él, en preguntarle a él preguntas también para que se puedan comunicar y tener información sobre cualquier duda o cualquier pregunta que ellos tengan.
So now, as we all know, we've also had some challenges here. We've had some considerable challenges with some students who are having a difficult time reacclimating to the school. And while we had a plan at the beginning of the year to support the students, I'll be honest with you, while we have the pieces in place, we were surprised, quite frankly, at the level and the need that some of the students present. And so, as you all know, that's why we took a day today to really work together as a team to thoughtfully plan and support those students and providing them with the best possible option for their educational success.
Los estudiantes, para los estudiantes regresando, reentrando a las escuelas, perdón, cuando nosotros estábamos en proceso de hacer las clasificaciones para traer a los estudiantes de nuevo a las clases, tuvimos un plan en pie. Sin embargo, nos sorprendió bastante que el plan que tuvimos tuvo que tomar un poco tuvo que cambiar un poco por lo que estamos en este momento pasando y también por el nivel de ayuda que los estudiantes están necesitando en este momento. Por eso hoy se cerró la escuela para poder analizar eso y poder reempezar de nuevo con un nuevo plan para poder ayudar a los estudiantes.
Damon, before you go on, I do want to address, I see a couple of things here, and across all of our schools, much of the dollars that we received from the federal government has been put into hiring. We have hired additionally 240 people this school year, going to social workers, additional school counselors, 85 to 90 teaching assistants with a focus on building relationships. So we've spent a lot of money on staffing. And I wanted you to know that that's kind of, I'm seeing that with middle school and high school.
Hay muchos comentarios hablando sobre el dinero que se le ha proveído al distrito escolar y la superintendente quiere dejarles saber a todos los padres que con el dinero que se proporcionó se han contratado a más de 240 personas dentro de las escuelas. Esto incluye trabajadores sociales, incluyen asistentes para los maestros y también consejeros escolares.
And that's including 13 additional special education teachers and our teachers for our students with English as a second language.
Esto incluye 13 personas para estudiantes con necesidades especiales y para estudiantes que también tienen otro idioma como un segundo lenguaje.
All right, and now I'm going to try to address some of the specific questions I saw in there. Sarangeli Garcia, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I noticed very early on in the chat, you indicated that your child is being bullied. If that's happening at the high school, please reach out to me. Mr. Kanata is going to put my contact information. If it's not at the high school, you really need to reach out to your building principal immediately. That is a topic that we take very, very seriously, and there's not an administrator in the district who wouldn't immediately address that.
El comentario fue que hay de un padre de que hay bullying que está sucediendo ahorita, bullying dentro de con el hijo. Y la respuesta es que si cualquier padre está pasando por esto, que tiene a su hijo que está pasando por un momento que está haciendo bullying por otros estudiantes, que por favor se comuniquen con los administradores de sus escuelas. Hay cero tolerancia para este tipo de acción contra los estudiantes. Así que por favor comuníquense con los directores de sus escuelas para notificarles a ellos para tomar manos en el asunto.
The next question I saw that I think pertained directly to the high school was dismissal. I did send out a message today that I hope everybody received, that we are doing an early dismissal tomorrow on Thursday and then again on Friday, and that time is at 12 o'clock.
Para los padres que están preguntando sobre la escuela para el high school mañana y el horario, mañana los estudiantes, mañana y pasado mañana, que es jueves y viernes, los estudiantes regresarán a la escuela. Sin embargo, va a ser mediodía y los estudiantes saldrán a las 12 del mediodía. Será solamente para mañana y viernes.
Now, early on, I saw that Basil Green asked a question around peer mediation, and that's a great question. And what we started putting into place here last year and is really benefiting and helping out this year is a student assistance center. And that is a purposeful place in the building. It's kind of a third space for students to go if they're experiencing conflict and need some support in managing that. And part of the programming there is having a robust peer mediation process where students can help, when appropriate, other students mediate conflict. So we have made that investment already here at New Britain High School.
La pregunta o el comentario que se hizo fue sobre la mediación entre los estudiantes y el señor Damon anunció que los estudiantes en este momento tienen un centro de asistencia donde ellos pueden ir si están experimentando o pasando por algún tipo de conflicto. Esta es una oportunidad para los estudiantes trabajar con sí mismos y poder ayudarles a sus colegas, a los otros estudiantes, si están pasando por un tipo de problema, si es que es algo que pueden hacer ellos.
Damon, could you talk a little bit about, things that we discussed today with the media and also with the mayor around that continuum, right? And what logical consequences look like and how they can vary in degree.
So, and I also saw some chats around the discipline piece as well. And so discipline is a very thoughtful process that you have to gauge in. I mean, if you think of the root word of discipline, it means to teach. And so there's a continuum of consequences and support that we are obligated as educators to support our students with. Myra, do you want to do that piece? Then I'll keep going.
Yeah. What was the question again? I'm sorry, because I was trying. I was trying to see the chat to see what the question was.
I see a lot of comments about consequences for student behavior, and I want to be sure that we're clear in the end that there are very real consequences for actions taken. So that was what Damon was referring to, Myra.
Yeah.
Okay. So hay varios comentarios sobre consecuencias para los estudiantes. Y como mencionó el señor Pierce, que disciplina es un proceso que se tiene que pensar muy bien y muy a fondo. La continuación de consecuencias es algo que tenemos que ver bien y tratar de corregir de cierta forma. Y eso es algo que se está trabajando o que estamos trabajando en este momento.
And so there are guidelines that are provided to us from the state of Connecticut on how we are to approach the issue of student discipline. We are not dismissing it. We are not ignoring those guidelines, and we're not ignoring student behavior. It's just that we are obligated as public school administrators to really approach this process thoughtfully and in a way that not only applies a consequence, but can also help the student improve and grow in their capacity to act here in school.
Hay guías que se han proveído del Estado y no estamos ignorando en este momento las guías que se han dado. Sin embargo, estamos obligados en pensar cómo vamos a ayudar a los estudiantes y mitigar los problemas que están ocurriendo en este momento.
And so part of our work today was to address that very issue. And depending on the students, because the team met today, and the reason why we needed this very unusual day, and I wouldn't have made the request if I didn't think it was absolutely necessary, but we really needed to pull the entire administrative and support staff team together to really begin to identify and support students and apply those consequences where appropriate for the students, for the limited number of students that are making, quite honestly, a lot of disruption and distraction here in the school.
Parte del trabajo que se hizo hoy fue de hablar sobre el tema en unión con todo el personal del distrito y el equipo del distrito, perdón, para identificar y proveer soporte para los estudiantes y también para hablar de cómo qué tipo de consecuencias van a haber para los estudiantes que en este momento están causando problemas o han hecho mucha destrucción dentro de las clases.
Mr. Pierce, go ahead. And when you're done, I'm going to have, if Ms. Swaby wouldn't mind talking, were you going to do the same thing?
I was just going to introduce Donna because she can add some additional layer.
Well, I think what our families need to understand is there's not one consequence. It's on a continuum. It's on a range, right? From an expulsion to providing a mentor, right? And it depends on the situation, the student, and I'll have Donna go into it more now.
Thank you, and thank you for the question. So with regard to discipline, as Mr. Pierce has already indicated, we are under direction of the State Department of Education. We are also under we have to follow, right, the laws that have come out that protect students. I do want to say, generally speaking, over the past few years, the laws that have come out around discipline, even around things such as restraint and seclusion, they are in place to protect students more so, right? We sort of, over time in education, the pendulum, if you will, is swinging, meaning there used to be a time when it was sort of okay to have a zero tolerance policy in districts, where we would move swiftly to suspend students, to, have them out of school for a disciplinary consequence, if you will. But the state, a lot of research around juvenile justice, around what actually causes a change in behavior. All of that research tells us that, punitive measures don't necessarily correct behaviors. And so we talk a lot about the need to provide instruction, direct instruction sometimes to our students to help them learn those skills to be more disciplined in school, to be more compliant in school. And so I know that there are folks out there, staff, families that feel like we should still sort of be very swift and harsh with our discipline procedures, but we cannot do that, right? We have to follow the guidance of the state, and we have to listen to the research. And so we really are another layer to like what we're dealing with during this pandemic is shifting our practices to make sure that we're being more restorative with students, that we are teaching them explicit skills. The morning meetings or these conferences that both Mr. Verdi and Ms. Robles have alluded to is really a strategy or a structure to help teach kids skills. It creates a safe space in the classroom, and it also allows for opportunities to give them explicit instruction in what is appropriate. In some of our specialized programs for students with disabilities, we actually have structures in place that would remove a student from the classroom and allow them some time one-on-one with one of our behavior support assistants to receive instruction on appropriate behaviors. So I know that it may feel a little frustrating to some who may still be of that mindset, that we should just suspend or expel. But we really, we have an obligation as a school district to demonstrate our attempts and our processes to educate students about what's appropriate in terms of their behaviors, as opposed to just sending them home and suspending them.
Donna, can I ask you just to pause for a minute?
Yes, thank you. Sorry, Myra.
Myra, I know this is good.
La señora Donna Swaby habló sobre la disciplina y como mencionó el señor Pierce, la superintendente, que la disciplina siempre depende de la situación y también el estudiante para ver qué tipo de consecuencias tendría esa persona. Como mencionó Donna Swaby, la disciplina, nosotros estamos bajo la dirección del Estado de seguir las leyes que protegen a los estudiantes. Las leyes que están en pie protegen a los estudiantes. Antes se podía tener cero tolerancia, sin embargo, se ha visto que estos actos disciplinarios no siempre ayudan. Así que para suspender a un estudiante luego y no trabajar con ellos no siempre ha sido beneficioso, y esto ha sido comprobado por estudios que se han hecho. También, por ejemplo, como mencionó la señora Robles y el señor Verdi, cosas que ellos están haciendo en este momento, como las reuniones por la mañana, son estrategias que pueden proveer instrucción explícita para los estudiantes y que también puedan ayudarle a los estudiantes. Para estudiantes con disabilidades, hay estructuras en pie que ayudan con el comportamiento. Si un estudiante necesita retirarse del aula y estar uno a uno con un maestro, se han hecho ciertas cosas para poder ayudarle a esos estudiantes en esos momentos.
I would also like to add, if I can, I don't want to send the wrong message that we can never suspend a student. Obviously, there are some offenses that, if they're too egregious, would require us to suspend students. But for some of the lesser infractions, we have an obligation to document our attempts to intervene and teach students, the appropriate skills and behaviors. however, if there is a pattern, right, if the student is not responsive to our interventions and our instruction, then there may come a point where we would need to suspend that student. So, we're really looking at sort of a graduated approach to discipline. And we want to make sure that we are providing multiple opportunities for teaching. And often that's happening in small group or, one-on-one with students.
La señora Swiby quiere dejarles saber a los padres que por favor no piensen que nosotros no queremos suspender o expulsar a los estudiantes de las escuelas. Nosotros queremos que los padres tengan en mente que todo depende de qué tan fuerte fue cuál fue el problema. Sin embargo, si hay algún tipo de infracción mínima en cual el estudiante no sea muy fuerte para suspenderlo, hay otras oportunidades que nosotros tomamos para poder solucionar el problema y poder trabajar con los estudiantes para evitar de que ellos sean expulsados. Así que sí hay que tomar manos en el asunto y dependiendo de qué tan severo es el problema, un estudiante puede ser suspendido, pero también hay cosas que se han hecho internamente para poder evitar eso si se puede.
I want you to know too, I see a lot of comments and a lot of questions, and I'm just taking the time to kind of cut and paste and put them in a doc so we can look through these post tonight's meeting and then come back together again to really address some of the things and educate you on some of the laws and the practices. I think that would be helpful.
La superintendente mencionó que hay muchos comentarios sobre consecuencias y sobre ciertos temas que podemos hablar en otro tiempo donde yo pueda proveer la información más sobre las leyes y qué significa ciertas cosas para poder informarles a ustedes mejor.
Thanks, Myra.
And we're talking a lot of general rules and procedures that govern the school. Maybe if I provide a couple of specific examples, that might help illustrate the point. Because I saw one comment in there about the vandalism, which is frustrating all of us. But we were able to identify, and I have to keep this general because I don't want to single out any students here in public, but we were able to identify some students who engaged in an act of vandalism. And this is where you have to be very thoughtful when you look at what the consequence is. So we looked at the students, we looked into their history, and saw that they had never really gotten into trouble in school before. So given that, they did receive a consequence. And additionally, we asked them to engage in helping cleaning up an area of the school a little bit later on, right? So a way of paying back and to the building and hopefully investing them in it. From what I heard, it was very, very well received by the students. And I think that's a win for us. And that's how we help students grow. Mara?
El señor Damon Pierce mencionó que hemos podido identificar, por ejemplo, de lo que está sucediendo ahorita, hay mucha gente que está escuchando sobre el vandalismo dentro de la escuela y hemos podido identificar los estudiantes que han participado en el vandalismo. Como parte de, obviamente, de poder trabajar con los padres y las familias, se notó de que los estudiantes no tienen un historial mal ni un récord dentro de la escuela. Y el tipo de consecuencia que se les dio a los estudiantes era de ayudar a limpiar y obviamente asistir a lo que se ha hecho dentro de las escuelas. Así que ellos ayudaron con la limpieza y él notó que eso fue aceptado y no hubo ningún problema y los estudiantes sin ningún problema aceptaron eso.
On the other end of the spectrum, and this is that continuum that the superintendent was talking about, today, we took the opportunity as a team to identify students, and we identified a few who have really engaged in repeated acts of misbehavior and disruption here in the building. And I hope it's permissible for me to say this, but there are some students that are going to continue their education in an alternate placement for the foreseeable future.
Al otro lado del espectro, como mencionó Mr. Pierce, se han identificado esos estudiantes que sí han tenido desafortunadamente problemas repetitivamente y que han tenido varios problemas dentro de la escuela. Y en este momento se está hablando de qué es lo que se va a poder hacer o qué es lo que se va a hacer con estos estudiantes, probablemente mantenerlos en casa para que ellos continúen los estudios desde casa.
And that's why this takes time. I have an obligation to every child and to every family that enters this building to make sure that when a student engages in misbehavior, that we take the time to really learn the student, learn what the issue is, and to provide the appropriate level of consequence and support.
Por eso dice Mr. Pierce que esto toma tiempo. Tenemos que analizar a los padres, también analizar a los estudiantes y también ver qué tipo de consecuencias se puede dar. No siempre es fácil o algo que se puede hacer rápidamente. Todo depende de lo que uno aprenda de las familias o de las familias que vaya conociendo. Y crear esas relaciones es algo que se ha estado haciendo para poder contribuir con el tipo de trabajo que se está haciendo.
I'm seeing in the chat too, and I think this begs another conversation, further conversation. I don't mind doing it in person. These are going to be things that we can discuss because there's varying viewpoints, and we had a really good discussion today with the whole team and Mayor Stewart to help her understand too all of the things that we are doing in the buildings every single day. We're not turning a blind eye. With behaviors come consequences. And you know, sometimes parents want to know all the time, and that's not something that's a part of their plan. That's a part of educating the student. We are here for all students, and to Mr. Pierce's point, our job is to find the best space and place for every student so they can be their personal best. Now, that doesn't mean it will be in our building. It might be in the building. It might be an alternate setting. We have been working really hard over the last 5 years to develop alternative programming for students. Satellite Careers is one example. We have Brookside, that is another example. We partner with Pathways Senderos to help some of our struggling students off-site. So we are constantly partnering with our community. And Klingberg, Community Health Center, CMHA, deep partnerships with all of our mental health affiliates. It's all hands on deck. Myra?
Hubieron conversaciones dentro del edificio con la alcalde de New Britain para poder proveerles información sobre qué es lo que está pasando dentro de la escuela y para que ellos tengan un mejor conocimiento de lo que está sucediendo. Nosotros hemos establecido muchas conexiones con la comunidad, como por ejemplo programas para después de la escuela como Pathways y también organizaciones como CMHA en la clínica o Kleinberg, que son soportes adicionales para nuestros estudiantes. En los últimos 5 años nosotros hemos revisado programas como algo alternativo para los estudiantes y esto es algo que seguimos y seguiremos haciendo y trabajando.
All right, Damon, did you want to wrap up? Mr. Verdi, do you want to wait and respond to these questions? We can come on again next week. And I'm trying like crazy. I hope all of you will join us again. I want to respect your time. And Kristen Giantonio, I want to point to that one. I just saw that one coming in. They're coming in fast. What will be done differently tomorrow to ensure the safety of New Britain High School kids?
And Kristen, that's a great question. So I am confident we didn't solve every student's needs today. So what the admin staff has done is we have cleared our schedule for the next 2 days where we can be as present as we can to continue identify and support kids going forward. And I will be at the PTO meeting tomorrow night. I saw that in the chat there. So we may have more time there to go into greater depth.
La pregunta fue que qué va a cambiar mañana o qué va a ser diferente mañana. Y el señor Pierce mencionó que aunque todos los resultados o las respuestas no las hemos resuelto hoy, nosotros trabajaremos que el personal y todo el personal escolar de New Britain High School va a estar disponible y van a trabajar duro para poder seguir y continuar con el tema. Él va a estar mañana en la reunión del PTO para las personas que quieran asistir. Él va a estar allí y él puede responder más preguntas que se estén presentando en este momento que a lo mejor no se puedan responder en el momento.
Nancy, can I say one thing?
Absolutely.
I see Jose Rivera, and I did get a phone message from Jose Rivera, and I tried to call him back before this meeting. So, Mr. Rivera, I will call you right after the meeting. I did get your voicemail, and I'll call you right after this meeting is over.
Thanks, Mike. Yes, I see one. I think the high school warrants another town meeting. I would agree, and I think that maybe what we'll do is separate, do middle schools once, and then we'll go to the high school as well. I just lost my train of thought here. Did we want to close it, Damon, at all? At the PTA meeting, can you tell the time and the place? Is it in person? What's going on with that?
Yeah, it's in person. And Kristen, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's at 6 o'clock tomorrow night.
I encourage the folks on the call, come to the high school tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock. And this can be, clearly these are questions that you have and you need answers for, and I respect that. I do want to be respectful of all of your time and taking the time now to be with us. Thank you very much for all of your feedback. Melanie Alvarez, this is the last one. And can you provide a remote option for parents who can't attend tomorrow? Matt, we can do that, right? Well, Matt's not here. Yeah, Matt's off screen, but we could
do that. Yeah, we can make that happen.
Yeah. I want to close with. Oh, go ahead, Myra.
I just want to translate for the Spanish-speaking families. Mañana a las 6 de la tarde en persona va a ser la reunión de PTO por si quieren asistir en la escuela de New Britain High School. También van a tener la opción de virtual, pero si pueden asistir en persona, se les está comunicando que va a ser a las 6 de la tarde mañana.
Thank you for being on the call. It's great to see such a turnout. I always want to be able to answer it the way everyone wants to hear it. But our jobs as educators, there are guidelines, there are processes, there are state laws. And that was the one thing I think the takeaway, the mayor was like, I didn't realize all the layers. And it's really hard to capture the layers of work that we do for every single student. And I feel the frustration from parents when their student isn't the one causing a disruption. But every child is afforded due process. That has to be it. Now, it doesn't mean they have to be constantly doing the same thing every day or we're turning a blind eye. That's not what we mean. But it's incredibly difficult work in education today. For many of us, I'm going to be 60 soon. We remember a different landscape. We remember a different time, right? And again, sometimes I think my kids will tell me that nostalgia is kind of blinded. You always think it was so much better, but maybe there were some issues too. And I just want to close with, we are here for you. But there's 10,000, right? And so every day, my administrators and my teaching staff and our paras and our BSAs and everybody comes to work all in. And I apologize, we're not perfect, but listening to you gives us practice. I just found out from Matt that I didn't need to cut and paste all those comments, that he's going to do it for me. And I wasted about 15 minutes there. But I thank you very much for being here with us. Myra.
La superintendente quiere dejarles saber que se entiende que en estos momentos es un momento muy fuerte y muy duro. La educación de hoy ha cambiado mucho a comparación de la educación de antes. Sin embargo, estamos aquí para ustedes y para ayudarles en lo que se pueda. Los miembros del distrito escolar se reúnen para poder continuar y entrar para dar su 100% cada día. Así que nosotros queremos que todos sepan que el distrito está trabajando muy duro para poder ayudarles a todos, y aunque no somos perfectos, estamos tratando de poder ayudar lo más que podamos para proveerle más asistencia y obviamente más información a nuestras familias.
All right, stay safe, everyone, and come to the PTA meeting at the high school. We will be back again next week. Next week, I think we're going to focus on high school next week, unless Mr. Pierce comes back and says, oh, we talked about all this at PTA, but I have a feeling it's going to be next week for high school. Okay. All right. And the week after for middle. Thank you again, everyone. Have a great night.